This episode is sponsored by JSW Steel. Hi, so today we have a very wonderful person, and a person sometimes that I always look up to learn is Ramya, where she's a founder of Center and where she's been working a lot on teacher assessment, and their organization speaks volumes, especially in terms when they have introduced Olympiad for educators. We've all heard about Olympiad for children, but their topic about Olympiad for educators is been the most exciting thing, which keeps people on toes to see what more I can learn, and how can I make a difference actually. So today's topic and the frame what we've looked at is on competency framework for educators and how important it is. And since Ramya's contribution has been enormous, working with various government as well as an institution which is very clearly focused on how to enhance career growth for educators. So Ramya, it's a warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shanti, and wonderful to be a part of this podcast.
Thanks a lot. So, Ramya, my first question, like I was always just thinking, is coming from a for-profit organization and trying to make a larger impact in the education sector, and also being a woman entrepreneur. Just can you, share some of your journey, like from McKinsey, from corporate, what inspired you to, move into Center and, start off doing something like this, which has been very, very clear focused.
So the thing is that yeah, I mean, in my 15-year career with McKinsey, of course, the first 10 years, I worked in a bunch of different sectors like everybody else. Used to work in heavy industries, manufacturing, that space. But I was passionate about education for a long time, even before that. Even I mean, in fact, since my high school days. And I got the opportunity in my last 5 years of McKinsey to build McKinsey's education practice, and I was building and heading that. And one big learning that came out of that work for me personally was that teachers don't have a clear career pathway or an opportunity to see professional growth in line with their competencies. So we keep saying that teachers should improve their practice, they should get trained, they should use various technology, pedagogy, etc. But we don't answer the question, how can the teacher's own career grow along with those competencies? And I found that to be a big bottleneck in this landscape, because it ends up then demotivating teachers who are trying to do a good job, because ultimately as a professional, yes, we have an external commitment to what we are doing to our children or whatever other stakeholders we are working with, but we also want growth for ourselves. That's a very natural human aspiration. And when teachers don't see that growth over a period of time, they start getting demotivated. Over a period of time, we don't attract people from the next generation into the teaching profession. So I wanted to work on this particular aspect. And of course, I had already by then completed 15 years at McKinsey, so it was a long time. I thought time has come to do something new, start a fresh journey, and decided to take the plunge into entrepreneurship. The model I had in mind was also a market-driven model, which means that we should be able to certify teachers on their competencies, and that certificate should carry value in the ecosystem, whether it is from private schools, whether it is from governments, whether it is from edtechs, other entities. So it should carry value in the ecosystem. And if that carries value, then relevant stakeholders, whether it is the teacher because his or her own career is going to grow, or it is the school because they are able to project that they have so many certified teachers, and therefore get recognition from parents, etc. Whoever that stakeholder is then willing to pay for the certification and for associated training. So given that it has to be a market driven model, yeah, I was also very particular that it should be a for profit entity, which is therefore governed by the market. It is responsible to the market. It has to make this work for all stakeholders, who then have to pay and vote with their feet, rather than being grant driven, where the alignment might be different. So which was the thought process of starting a social enterprise, which is a for-profit entity, also trying to have large-scale social impact. And yeah, it's been 10 years now, and this is where we are.
Wow, wow. So have you ever, like, when you started off this journey from McKinsey and where you always felt very pride about working with them, and today you start your own enterprise, and it must have got a lot of emotional, challenges, and sometimes you must be thinking, am I doing the right thing? So how has been your journey? That's the reason why I asked. Very few women entrepreneurs who try to hold it on and run according to the market driven, do a lot of R&D, try to change products, and it's not easy, irrespective of whatever, whether gender, not being gender biased, but still sometimes as a woman, because we're already built with a lot of emotions. And so how do you find this journey actually, and did you ever feel, what motivates you to still stick around? And you said 10 years is, it's a huge time, right? And
Yeah,
yeah, so how do you keep yourself upbeat?
yeah, yeah.
And how has been your journey actually as a woman entrepreneur by yourself?
So, so frankly, it's not, I've not faced something very specific to being a woman entrepreneur, but more generally, yes, transition from a place like McKinsey is not easy. And it's not easy, not only because of the fact that, yes, in 15 years, you get used to certain perks, certain ways of living, traveling,
Living.
etc. But more than that, I had a very close set of friends at work, friends and mentors, and definitely the feeling of loneliness when you start entrepreneurship is very strong. And I think for me, what was lucky, one was that one of my mentors in McKinsey said, I asked him, like, how do I how do I manage this transition with the loneliness that I'm already feeling thinking about it, like I've not even left and I'm already feeling that I'm going to be
I
lonely.
know.
So his advice was, form an advisory board, and bring on board a set of people whom you really respect and trust, and who are going to be part of the journey with you. So right in the beginning, I formed an advisory board, including, in fact, the same person who gave me that advice, Michael Fernandez, who's one of my mentors in McKinsey, but also other people like, Ashish Dhawan from Central Square Foundation, Sridhar Rajagopalan from Educational Initiatives, and a bunch of other people gradually over time who joined Behram Vakil from AZB Partners, a bunch of other people who gradually joined this advisory board over time. And they have been strong supporters from the beginning. The second thing, of course, I was lucky on was to have a co-founder. And thirdly, that the very first two people, Priyanka Arya and Karthik Menon, who joined as employees, they have, touchwood, stayed part of the journey till now.
Yeah,
And Priyanka has, in fact, become a co-founder
co-founder.
in the company now. Karthik heads product for us, and the three of us have been together since the beginning. And then, of course, later on, there have been other colleagues who have now completed 5 years, 6 years with us. So I think just having that support group has played the biggest role in going through the ups and downs, which, as you rightly said, they are inevitable.
Thanks, Ramya. This is like very important. What we've always said is like we have advisory board because we want somebody to just join us. We want to look at the brand and name of the person from where they're coming. But it is so important, like when we really need that emotional and the guidance sometimes where we are stuck with. So it's very important to choose somebody who can actually support us through the journey. So that's what is meant as advisory board, which makes a whole game changer. So can you just tell us, like, from the kind of way that you have looked from McKinsey, there also you're working with education. Now you also started off with Center. Some prime factors of how Center actually differentiates its product per se when we talk about assessment and standardization. So if you could just, give us some insight on those, that'd be really nice.
So,
How?
so I think the crux of Center is that we are entirely focused on teachers, and in fact, that was the reason for even having the name teacher in the organization's name,
Organization.
so that we are very clear that that focus is never going away. And even when we had the name teacher or the word teacher in our organization's name, there were people who asked us, "Do you really want to, narrow yourself and commit yourself in that manner? Tomorrow, maybe you will want to work on something else, like with maybe technology, with something else." And our point was that whatever else we work with, the teacher will always be at the center. So today, our work is very heavily tech enabled. We also provide AI co-pilots for teachers, things like that. But then the teacher is always at the center of our work. So I think that's one thing which we have been very particular about. The second thing is that we are very focused on the idea of competencies. So, and everything we do is linked to this competency framework, sorry, called CENTA standards, and which has also fed into now India's national professional standards for teachers very directly, where I'm part of the committee, etc. So, the idea of competencies is very central to our work. When we look at career growth for teachers, we are looking at competency linked career growth. We are not a teacher union that is advocating that all teachers
Absolutely.
should get better salary or something like that. We are not saying that. We are simply saying when teachers are building their competencies, they should see value in their career, in their earnings, etc. The tests that we run are very much checking those competencies in a practice oriented manner. So our tests are not tests of theory or knowledge alone. So they are practice oriented tests which are looking for those competencies in teachers. Similarly, when we are doing trainings or upskilling in different formats, they are trying to build those competencies so that teachers can apply those competencies in their classroom. The last thing I'll also mention is that we are not trying to quote unquote standardize. So, because you
Ah,
mentioned about standardization, we are not trying to standardize. Rather, the competency framework is meant to define that, okay,
define.
these are the competencies that are necessary for being a teaching professional. However, the way the competency is expressed might be very different in different situations among different teachers. And in fact, when you look at the Centa logo, and I think it's actually right behind me, so I can point to
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
When you look at the logo, the tick refers to meeting a competency standard, whereas the colorful C refers to the point that every teacher will do this in their own unique
Unique
and
way.
different manner. So we're not trying to standardize that at all. The teacher is bringing himself and herself into the classroom in a unique manner, but we are defining competency thresholds that they need to achieve.
Thank you, Ramya. This was so very clear because everybody talks about standardization, and this is how, so that happens. It's so, it actually brings in a framework in our mind to say, like, This is how, a teacher needs to be. This is the competency level it needs to be. But you said that's just a framework that we have around to say if these competencies are there, it helps a teacher to actually elevate and then, be able to deliver better. I think, am I reiterating it in the right way?
Yes, yes, it helps the teacher to deliver better, but two, it also becomes a signal for the landscape
Yes.
on how should I reward a competent teacher. So if we
Yeah.
say you need to reward a competent teacher, then the
How do you
immediate question
differentiate?
becomes, how do I know that this is a competent teacher? So these are the parameters based on which you will know. Here is a test whose score you can use, but the test itself is designed in such a manner and the upskilling is designed in such a manner that it is not prescribing one way to do something. So to give you a
Yeah.
simple example, say one of the core competencies of teaching is lesson planning. So yes, you need to have certain competencies in terms of how do you build a great lesson plan, but we never prescribe that this is the
This is the
only
only method. Yeah.
or this is the only lesson plan that works, or this is the only methodology of lesson planning that works. Rather, there are overall parameters on what makes a lesson plan good. And within that, you develop your own lesson plan in your own situation. Even our test will ask you in a situation oriented manner that in this particular situation, which of these lesson plans will work, rather than open endedly saying which is the best lesson plan.
Superb. This is amazing. Actually, every time I have a conversation with you, I get a different perspective of the way you think and the way you put it across, because every time we've had a very small conversation. So thank you for this. And this actually brings in to my next question about, see, because NEP also gives you a framework and it talks about inclusion and the SDG goals as well. So very beautifully, I could sense that how Center is also fitting into the same aligning with it to say we give you because your situation, your uniqueness should not be forgotten, but still, when we talk about inclusion, you're catering to different learners.
Mhm.
So the lesson plan, if you're going to go with a fixed lesson plan in your mind, it may not cater to all the learners. So as you
Correct.
beautifully said, it's situational based how you are using it. For that, you need a large amount of knowledge as well to say if this is not working, so what is working? Right. So, how do you see that going forward, actually, apart from assessing? I know that you're also doing a little bit more on the training aspects and, strengthening that bit of it as well to see if they can learn various options per se. Am
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. So, in fact, frankly, training has become more than half of our work now. So, training is actually, in some ways, the biggest part of our work now, though assessment remains a big part, but training is a very big part. And again, in training, what we are trying to do is a very personalized and pull driven mode of training, which means that you can come to the center platform every day, decide what you want to learn,
want to learn?
decide in which format you want to learn, and take 5 minutes to learn one small nugget. So we are trying to make training work inside, or learning work inside your day-to-day schedule, like many other professionals. We When we want to learn something, like if let's say I am an entrepreneur, let's say I want to find out something very specific about mm, maintaining my accounts, then it's not that I will wait for some training workshop. I will
Workshop.
quickly check some resource, find out, or I'll quickly talk to somebody who's an expert, find out, and I'll apply it. Now same goes
Absolutely.
for teachers. If I'm entering a class today where I need to, let's say, um, figure out how to handle a particular student who has been very difficult for the last few classes, then I cannot wait for a workshop 3 months
To
later
happen.
to find out. So the idea is to come to the platform, check, okay, where can I find some quick nuggets on this, or come to the community and ask where many others might respond. In fact, one of the most interesting things we find in our community is that a teacher from, say, Mysore might put a question, and a teacher from Accra in Ghana is answering, saying that, oh, this is how we do it in our class, or a teacher from Manila in Philippines is saying, okay, this is how we do it. And while it may or may not be directly applicable, everyone gets a broader perspective. Oh, this is
Perspective.
how you deal with a similar situation. And you also feel as a professional, I'm not alone. So teaching while you are with students all the time, in some ways it's also a lonely profession, because you are the only adult in the classroom, and it's almost like everyone is expecting that you have the answers because you are the adult in the classroom. Now when you have a broader community which is giving you that support, and where you are able to quickly get inputs, it becomes a powerful way to learn. So a lot of our learning ends up being very personalized and pull driven. And of course we also have the traditional workshop driven longer courses, etc., available, which people take up from time to time.
Lovely, lovely. So, like, you have not only looked at assessment, but also continuous learning process has become a very important aspect for an educator. So, as you said, beautifully bringing out those nuggets, and when you want only look at that specific thing and you want to learn something very specific, so that is also available there. So, where
Yeah.
people could look up to, right? So, in the process, like it's also very difficult as of now to bring in that attitudinal change and also scaling up on what we are doing actually. So both of us being on the training space, and I'm not in the assessment space, but how do you think do you think scaling is a huge challenge, and because of the attitudinal change needs to be driven, what should be done first actually? And scaling is definitely a huge challenge in the current scenario, seeing that so many things are happening, but what and how do you place things in the market, and how do you be a part of that change, and is it easy?
I think none of this is easy. And one thing is that things take time. So, as you said in the beginning, yeah, it's been 10 years now at Centa. And we've been patient in the journey, which was very important. And we have been clear that it is a long haul, and we need to patiently see it through
Think-
and not look for results overnight. So I think that's been one part of it. But second, also, I think it is about creating win-win for everybody. So sometimes people say teachers don't have the attitude uh, towards training, but why should a teacher learn if it is not aligned with their own growth as a
Growth.
professional? Coming back to what I said earlier, so how
Yeah.
do we create that interest in learning by linking it to career growth, which all of us look for? I mean, frankly, I think in childhood, okay, a lot of learning happens partly automatically, partly by compulsion, etc. But as adults, there is only a very small subset of people who are driven to learn for the sake of learning. Most of us learn because we want to apply it at work, and because that application is also going to lead to our own professional growth in addition to the work that we are doing. So how do we create that scenario for teachers where that learning directly links to their work, and it is recognized in their ecosystem of schools, governments, society, parents, etc. And they are seeing that yes, they are receiving professional growth in various ways, which is, it could be a promotion, it could be a salary increase, it could be an international exchange opportunity, it could simply be recognition in the community, it could be various forms of professional growth. And when that happens, we find that, yeah, teachers also want to get into that habit of learning. In fact, we clocked 12 million learning engagements on the Centa platform in
Wow,
10 million learning engagements in a 12-month period on the Centa platform, which is a
that's
very huge
amazing.
number of learning engagements in a completely self-driven manner
manner.
by teachers.
Oh, that's a fantastic example. And it's not been that easy. And, to bring in 10 million people to learn and then be motivated. As you said, carrot and stick. So each one's carrot is very different. Like, what attracts them, what motivates them. So
I'm not putting
yeah,
it stick side at all, but
but
we are entirely focused on what are those carrots.
what are the carrots and identify
Yeah.
what carrots can actually enhance. And thanks, Ramya, to just to sum up our whole conversation of what we've had. So one is, if people who are listening to this, okay, and people who are definitely wanting to see what's the takeaway from this whole conversation is, though focused on the framework of the for educators, how important it is to understand. So all throughout our conversation, I've always seen what you mentioned is understanding what the teacher requires and how do you accommodate your product according to what is their needs. And right, and even the assessment is not like very rigid kind of a thing to say this is what you cannot keep saying this is what is right. So you allow the assessment and say, like, yeah, this is the way it needs to be, but how you play around within it is totally your game, because that is what we always talk about, strength based for students, but we also need to focus on strength based for educators because everybody has their own strength. So aligning their strength is where you see the competency level for the educators, right? So the way you put it across is very beautiful. And last but not the least is like, of course, you said attitude will change, but how can I make that attitude will change? Only if I identify what they require, because everybody's needs are so different,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I would be very happy if you could want to give out some kind of a message to the educators listening who want to opt for a career and look at education as they want to teach. A lot of people do have that passion for teaching, but sometimes they feel, yeah, I'm not motivated to go forward because I don't know about the salaries, I don't know about the growth or what is happening around. So how do you think that what could, and even for the in-service teachers, right, to make a difference? And people are so passionate, some of them, but still somewhere they get burnt out very fast. So is like, how do you not get yourself burnt out fast? And how do you actually look at, moving forward in this profession? Because that would
Yeah.
be a great thing to hear from you.
Sure. So, see, my a couple of messages to teachers and aspiring teachers would be one that it is actually a very interesting time for the profession. I think more and more there is recognition of the value of this profession, and even with all the developments in technology over decades, including the latest developments on AI, I think people are still coming back to saying that the teacher plays a central role.
Central role.
And with that, the opportunities in the profession are becoming interesting in the sense that they're also becoming varied. Part of it
Yeah.
is, of course, the day-to-day classroom teaching, but it is also related to content creation, to student assessment design, to international opportunities, etc. So it is becoming a more vibrant profession where people can actually have many different opportunities over a 20, 30-year career, rather than feeling like a bit of a dead end. So it is actually an interesting time, I feel, to be part of this profession.
To
So
explore,
that's, yeah, that's
to
my,
explore better opportunities for them to learn. They could also become mentors if they like
yeah,
really
absolutely.
for not only for the students but also for the peer groups as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, right. So
absolutely.
that which we
Mentors,
don't have it right now. Not much is
yeah,
happening in that space. So it would be really nice if we can develop that thing. As you said, this is a most interesting time where educators need to be looking at themselves as facilitators and trying to see how much they can imbibe and experience, and then they share it out to the students as well. So thanks, Ramya, for this wonderful conversation that you've had. And it's going to be a very insightful thing for people to reflect on this conversation, to see how, because every time there is a strict rigid thing of saying, okay, this is the framework, it has to work, this is how it needs to be assessed. But when you give that open space and say work on your own strengths, and then you see your own competencies and bring out that way, it actually gives you a very different opening and thought processes for people to reflect on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.